This is just a quick tutorial using a watercolor block, painting a quick and easy sky. And so I'm just getting the paper as wet as possible using an old flat brush and trying to avoid this area where I've traced out a building that I'll eventually draw. And I'm going to tilt the paper just to make sure I can see that the paper is fully wetted. And then now I've mixed up some very goopy cerulean blue, and I'm just going in with that color now, making diagonal patterns in the sky. And then I'm also going to add some phthalo blue to that to darken it a little bit. So here I am going in with the phthalo blue. And you'll start to see the water or the pigment spreading along the page, and it starts to avoid where I've outlined the building, so that bit of the building is dry, and so the water won't actually go into that dry area. And I'll tilt the paper around just to make sure I spread it around enough. And then I'm going to take a very clean, dry paper towel and just blot. And I'm being pretty firm with my blotting, just blotting out white areas which I kind of see clouds forming. And you can do this however you want it. And it just turns out different every time. Just try different things and fuss around with it. And then I'm taking a clean brush with clean water, and going in on the side of the building and defining the edge of the building a little bit by pulling some sky, some pigment up to close to where the building is, and being careful to be kind of straight in my lines. The building has a little dome and a spike on top, so I'm going to bring the pigment up to near where the spike is. So now I'm just taking a clean dry brush and rolling it to make the clouds kind of wispy. This is a technique I learned on YouTube that kind of gets rid of the hard edges. Now I'll just tidy up the right side of the dome, bringing some pigment, some sky close to that spiky dome top. A little more dabbing using the paper towel, and a little bit more rolling off the paint. I have a little speck on the paper, just wiping that off a little bit. More of the rolling technique. I just tend to fuss with it a lot until I like how it looks. Of course, the paint starts to look different as it's drying, so you just kind of work with it. But on this paper, I got the paper so wet that I can still work with the pigment on the paper for a while, even after I start. So more fussing. Eventually, you start to see wispy clouds looking like they're forming. And you can't really see the corners of the page, they're off the frame, but I try to make sure I have some stuff going on in the corners of the page as well, just to add some interest. Going again, bringing some pigment up close to that edge of the building, and defining where that spike, the top of the building, will be. I've let it dry, and I'm going to go in again on dry paper now with some pretty heavy phthalo blue, where I see some very blue sky trying to peek through the clouds. And here's where I'm going to try to use the sky to point a little bit towards that dome. So that blue sky is kind of going to come down in a diagonal pattern. Still being fairly loose with this. And it's nice, I can use this darker color to really help bring forward the shape of that building. So that dark color is going to come right up against the wall of that building, really defining the building with the color. And so now I'm going in with clean water and dabbing around the edges, putting quite a lot of water into my brush, dabbing around the edges of that to blend it in. Not going too crazy with it, just getting rid of the hard edges and allowing the paint to go where it wants. More clean water, dabbing around. So hopefully that looks like a little bit more of a deeper sky there, bringing the white clouds a little bit more forward. Sorry about the autofocus and the lighting I'll try to improve that for the next videos. A little more clean water blending. And for this whole thing, I'm using a number 6 sable brush. The supplies will be in the comment section or in the description section. Tidying up the edge of the dome. Hopefully that's starting to look like the dome top of a building. A little bit more of that rolling technique. And just fussing with it. You can fuss with it as much as you want. Usually I tend to fuss with it too much. But it's fun, why not? A little bit more phthalo blue here, just where I start to see some little bit of sky coming through. And again, I want that to kind of a little bit point the eye towards the building and have some interest there in the lower right. And just using that paper towel trick again, now some brush with some clean water, dabbing around the edges to smear the paint out, to blend the paint out to the side. And I'm just kind of, as I'm doing this, just looking for sharp edges, hard edges, and just smoothing them with clean water, a brush damp with clean water. And that's easiest done when the whole painting is kind of damp, or the areas you want to work are damp. And eventually that left side of the building is going to be the bright side of the building to contrast against the dark sky there. Hopefully this is starting to look like some clouds, some simple little clouds. More clean water just to blend things in. Really could have stopped a couple of minutes ago, but I just keep on going. Just adding a little bit more action to stuff going on there. Unfortunately, this goes out of frame, but that's okay. A little bit more blending. And just to summarize, I painted the initial sky with pure cerulean, and then all of this touching up I've done using phthalo blue to really kind of make it deeper and darker. But you can use whatever colors you want. Just making sure some light colored sky kind of comes up against that right side of the building. To make the building be brought forward a little bit more. I don't want the sky, I don't want the white of the page just to kind of blend into the building. I'm just fussing around, getting rid of edges that I don't like, and a little piece of my brush came off. If you do that brush rolling technique, you might want to use a brush that you don't love so much because it's a little bit rough on the brush.